The teacher agreed to pretend as a millionaire's wife just to protect his little girl. The sound of soft chatter and the gentle clinking of silverware filled the air at the high-end restaurant. The lighting was warm and dim, casting soft shadows across the polished table settings. Every plate looked like a work of art, and every guest seemed to exude confidence. But Jane, a local teacher, didn't feel like she belonged in this world. Her second-hand dress was modest, her shoes worn, and her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her purse. She had promised her best friend Sarah that she would go through with this blind date. But sitting here, surrounded by luxury, she felt out of place. She couldn't help but remind herself, "I promised Sarah I'd do this." With a deep breath, Jane stood up and looked around, scanning the tables. "Table 7, she murmured under her breath. Her heart raced. At the back of the room, a man sat alone at a table, his dark hair neatly styled, his sharp suit setting him apart from everyone else. He was looking down at his phone, absorbed in his messages. This must be him, she thought, and walked over. "Hi, you must be Kevin. I'm Jane. Nice to meet you," she said with a smile, trying to hide her nerves. The man looked up, momentarily startled, his gaze shifting between her and his phone. Hi, Jane," he replied, his voice low, but his eyes lingered on her. Jane, thinking he was just shy, slid into the seat across from him. "I know this is awkward," she laughed nervously. "Blind dates are weird, right? Sarah said you might be a little quiet, so I'll do most of the talking." The man, Kevin, opened his mouth to correct her but hesitated. He had just gotten a message about a canceled meeting, and for some reason, he didn't mind the company. He gave her a faint smile. "Right, blind dates are something else." Jane smiled back, relieved that she wasn't the only one feeling awkward. The conversation flowed easily after that. Jane shared stories about her struggles working long hours to pay rent, her dream of opening an art studio one day. She spoke about her passion for painting and how she found solace in creating. Kevin, or rather Liam as she would soon learn, listened attentively. He had never met someone so genuine, someone who didn't care about his wealth. "You're not what I expected," Jane said suddenly, her tone shifting. "Sarah said you were reserved, but you're actually easy to talk to," Liam chuckled softly. "You're easy to talk to too," he said, making her cheeks flush. Just as Jane was about to ask him more about his work, her phone buzzed. She glanced down at the message. "Hey Jane, where are you? I'm at table 7. Looking forward to meeting you, Kevin." Jane's heart sank. She looked up at the man in front of her, her face turning bright red. "You're not Kevin, are you?" she whispered. Liam's smile faltered slightly. "No, I'm not." Jane's stomach twisted with embarrassment. "Oh my God," she muttered, standing abruptly. "I'm so sorry. I sat at the wrong table. This is so embarrassing." Without waiting for a response, she grabbed her coat and bolted for the door. Liam stood up, watching her go, a strange mixture of regret and curiosity swirling in his chest. He had meant to correct her from the start, but something about her openness made him hesitate. Why did he feel so drawn to her? Why did the thought of never seeing her again bother him so much? As Jane hurried out of the restaurant, she couldn't stop cringing at what had just happened. She had made a complete fool of herself. She only hoped she'd never see the man again. But as she reached the street, a part of her couldn't shake the feeling that their paths hadn't crossed by accident. The teacher agreed to pretend as a millionaire's wife, just to protect his little girl. The soft hum of conversation and the gentle clinking of silverware filled the air at the elegant restaurant. The lighting was warm and subdued, casting soft shadows over the polished table settings. Every plate seemed like a work of art, and every guest exuded confidence. But Jane, a local teacher, didn't feel like she belonged in this world. Her second-hand dress was modest, her shoes worn, and her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her purse. She had promised her best friend, Sarah, that she would go through with this blind date. But sitting here, surrounded by luxury, she felt completely out of place. She couldn't help but remind herself, "I promised Sarah I'd do this." With a deep breath, Jane stood up and began scanning the room. "Table 7, she muttered under her breath, Her heart raced. In the back corner, a man sat alone at a table, his dark hair neatly styled, and his sharp suit setting him apart from the others. He was absorbed in his phone, seemingly unaware of the world around him. This must be him, she thought, and walked over. "Hi, you must be Kevin. I'm Jane. Nice to meet you," she said with a smile, trying to mask her nerves. The man looked up, startled, and his gaze flickered between her and his phone. Hi, Jane," he replied, his voice low but curious. Jane, thinking he was just shy, slid into the seat across from him. "I know, this is awkward," she laughed nervously. "Blind dates are weird, right? Sarah said you might be a little quiet, so I'll do most of the talking." The man, Kevin, opened his mouth to correct her but hesitated. He had just received a message about a canceled meeting, and for some reason, he didn't mind the company. He smiled faintly. "Right, blind dates are something else." Jane smiled back, relieved to find some common ground. The conversation flowed easily after that. Jane shared stories about her struggles working long hours to pay rent, her dream of one day opening an art studio. She spoke about her love for painting and how it provided her with peace. Kevin, or rather Liam, as she would soon learn, listened intently. He had never met someone so genuine, someone who didn't care about his wealth. "You're not what I expected," Jane said suddenly, her tone thoughtful. "Sarah said you were reserved, but you're actually easy to talk to." Liam chuckled softly. "You're easy to talk to too," he said, making her cheeks flush. Just as Jane was about to ask him more about his work, her phone buzzed. She glanced down at the message. "Hey Jane, where are you? I'm at table 7. Looking forward to meeting you, Kevin." Jane's heart sank. She looked up at the man in front of her, her face turning bright red. "You're not Kevin, are you?" she whispered. Liam's smile faltered slightly. "No, I'm not." Jane's stomach twisted with embarrassment. "Oh my God," she muttered, standing abruptly. "I'm so sorry, I sat at the wrong table. This is so embarrassing." Without waiting for a response, she grabbed her coat and hurried out of the restaurant. Liam stood up, watching her go, a strange mixture of regret and curiosity swirling in his chest. He had meant to correct her from the start, but something about her openness made him hesitate. Why did he feel so drawn to her? Why did the thought of never seeing her again bother him so much? As Jane rushed out of the restaurant, she couldn't stop cringing at what had just happened. She had made a complete fool of herself. She just hoped she would never see the man again. But as she reached the street, a small part of her couldn't shake the feeling that their paths hadn't crossed by accident. As Jane rushed out of the restaurant, her heart pounded in her chest. She couldn't believe what had just happened. She had completely embarrassed herself. She had sat down at the wrong table, and to make it worse, she had convinced the man sitting there that they were on a blind date. She just wanted to disappear. With every step she took, her cheeks flushed hotter, and the sting of her humiliation deepened. She reached the door and hesitated for just a moment, her hand on the handle, but the thought of turning back made her stomach turn. She stepped outside into the cool night air, hoping the cold would numb the embarrassment that was swirling inside her. As she walked away from the restaurant, she could hear the distant hum of city life, but it felt like she was the only one in the world. What would she do now? She had no idea. Maybe she'd just go home, hide under her covers, and forget this ever happened. But as she walked further down the street, something caught her attention. The soft glow of a car's headlights reflected in the rain-soaked pavement. She stopped and looked back, half expecting to see the man from the restaurant, but there was no sign of him. She let out a long breath, her shoulders slumping with relief. But that relief was short-lived. A few moments later, her phone buzzed in her purse. She pulled it out, only to see a message from Sarah. "How did it go?" it read. Jane stared at the message for a moment, her thumb hovering over the reply. What could she even say? Should she tell Sarah what happened? Should she just lie and say everything went fine? But she couldn't bring herself to lie to her best friend. With a sigh, she typed back, "It was a disaster. I sat at the wrong table." She stared at the screen for a moment, wondering if Sarah would laugh or if she'd feel bad for her. After a few seconds, the reply came. "Oh no, I'm so sorry, but at least you were brave enough to go. You'll laugh about it later, trust me. Jane smiled a little at Sarah's response, but the smile quickly faded. She couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. There was something about that man, Liam. She remembered his name now that had caught her off guard. Even though their conversation had been brief, she couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd looked at her. He had that aura about him, the kind of self-assurance that only someone with real power could have. And yet, he had been so patient with her, so kind. It made no sense. Why would someone like him waste his time on someone like her? And why had he not corrected her when she had assumed he was Kevin? It didn't add up. Jane's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a car pulling up beside her. She looked up in surprise to see the very man she had just been thinking about standing there, his hand resting on the door of a sleek black car. "Jane, wait," Liam called out, his voice cutting through the night air. She froze, unsure of what to do. She had hoped he wouldn't find her, that she could escape the whole situation. But here he was. He smiled slightly, though it seemed a bit hesitant. "I know this is awkward, but I just wanted to make sure you're okay." Jane blinked, completely caught off guard. "I'm fine," she said quickly, turning to walk away. But her feet felt heavy, like they wouldn't carry her any further. He stepped closer, his presence commanding but not threatening. "Look, I know this whole thing is a mess," Liam said, "but I'd really like to make it up to you. Maybe we could grab a coffee or something." Jane felt her heart race, and for a moment, she wondered if she was dreaming. Why was he being so kind to her? She looked at him, her mind racing. I don't think that's a good idea," she stammered. "I'm sorry, but I don't even know you." Liam nodded slowly, as if understanding. "I get it. But can I at least apologize properly? I promise. I'm not a jerk or anything. I just didn't want you to leave thinking I was rude or something." Jane stood still, unsure of what to do. She felt a strange pull toward him, like there was something more to this encounter than just an awkward misunderstanding. But she couldn't quite put her finger on it. "You don't have to do this," she said, her voice softer now. "I'm just embarrassed." Liam smiled, and for the first time, Jane saw the warmth in his eyes that she had missed earlier. "We all get embarrassed sometimes," he said. "But I can promise you this. I won't let you leave without at least having a proper conversation with me." Jane hesitated for a moment, then let out a small sigh. Maybe this wasn't such a bad idea after all. Maybe she owed herself a chance to understand why this man, this stranger, had suddenly appeared in her life. "Okay," she said, finally giving in. "Let's go get that coffee." Liam's smile widened, and he held the door open for her. "I'll make sure you won't regret it." As Jane slid into the car, she couldn't help but wonder what this all meant. This was just a simple coffee, right? Yet, somehow, it felt like the start of something much bigger. Something she wasn't sure she was ready for. As Jane sat in the sleek black car, the warmth of the interior did little to calm the storm of thoughts swirling in her mind. She had just agreed to join Liam for coffee, something she never thought would happen after the awkward mix-up at the restaurant. Yet here she was, sitting beside a man she barely knew, feeling strangely comfortable despite the nerves running through her. Liam glanced over at her as he started the car, his smile still present but now tinged with something more genuine. "I really appreciate you giving me another chance," he said, his voice soft, almost apologetic. Jane gave a small nod, unsure of how to respond. "I guess it wasn't that bad," she murmured. "But, I didn't expect to see you again." "I wasn't expecting to see you either," Liam admitted, his tone lighter now. "But I guess things don't always go the way we plan, do they?" They drove in silence for a moment, the hum of the car filling the space between them. Jane couldn't help but wonder what Liam's real life was like. The brief glimpse she had gotten of him in the restaurant, so polished, so put together, didn't seem to match the quiet, patient man she was sitting next to now. "So tell me," she said after a beat, trying to break the silence. "What do you do, really? I mean, you said tech, but you don't buy it," Liam finished for her, raising an eyebrow. "It's not that," Jane said quickly. "It's just, you don't seem like the typical guy I'd expect to meet at a blind date, even by accident." Liam laughed softly, his eyes flicking toward her before returning to the road. "I guess I'm full of surprises." Jane chuckled at his response, but there was something else, something deeper in his tone that made her pause. Maybe it was the way he looked at her, almost like he was trying to tell her something without actually saying it. They pulled into a small, quiet coffee shop a few minutes later, the kind of place that felt cozy and welcoming. The smell of fresh coffee and pastries filled the air, and Jane immediately felt more at ease. They entered together, Liam holding the door open for her, a simple gesture that made her feel a little less like the awkward girl she had been just a short time ago. As they sat down with their drinks, Jane felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She hadn't expected to be sitting here, talking to a man like Liam, someone who seemed to have everything together. It was almost surreal. "So, tell me about you," Liam said, his tone casual but sincere. "What made you want to be a teacher?" Jane looked down at her coffee cup, swirling it gently. "I've always loved teaching," she said, her voice softening. "I think it's because I believe in the power of education, in how it can change lives. I didn't grow up with much, but I had teachers who saw potential in me when I didn't see it myself." Liam nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I can understand that. I wasn't exactly handed everything I have. It's funny how life works, right? You think you know what you want, then the universe throws you something totally unexpected." Jane looked up at him, sensing there was more to his story. "What do you mean?" she asked, curiosity getting the better of her. Liam leaned back in his chair, his eyes distant for a moment. "I've spent so much of my life focused on building my career, making money, achieving things that seemed important. But somewhere along the way, I lost sight of what really mattered. Family, relationships, things that actually make life worth living." His words caught Jane off guard, and for a brief moment, she saw a vulnerability in him she hadn't expected. It made her wonder just who Liam really was beneath the polished exterior. "I get that," she said quietly. "Sometimes it feels like everything you do is for the wrong reasons. You know, like you're just trying to keep up with everyone else." Liam's eyes met hers, and for the first time, she saw something that looked like genuine understanding. "Exactly," he said, his voice low. "I've spent so much time trying to prove something, I forgot what I was actually trying to prove." Jane couldn't help but feel a small connection with him then. They were both, in their own ways, searching for something deeper, something more real than the facades they had built around themselves. "It's not easy," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "But it's worth it, right? Finding that something real?" Liam studied her for a long moment before nodding slowly. "Yeah, I think it is." The conversation lingered in the air between them, and Jane couldn't help but feel like something had shifted. It wasn't just a coffee anymore. This wasn't just a man she had met by accident. There was more to Liam than she had realized, and for the first time since meeting him, Jane found herself wondering if this strange connection, this unexpected meeting, might turn into something much more meaningful than either of them had anticipated. As the days passed after their coffee date, Jane couldn't stop thinking about Liam. What had started as an awkward mix-up had somehow transformed into something deeper, something she wasn't prepared for. Every time she tried to move on from the unexpected encounter, her mind drifted back to him, the way he spoke about life, his vulnerability, and the raw honesty he shared. She hadn't expected a millionaire, someone like him, to open up so easily. But there was more to him than his wealth, and she couldn't help but feel drawn to him. It was a feeling she hadn't experienced before, and it left her questioning everything she thought she knew about herself. The next time they saw each other was at a charity gala Liam had invited her to attend with him. It was a grand event, the kind of thing Jane had only ever seen in movies. The venue was breathtaking, with sparkling chandeliers hanging from the ceiling and elegantly dressed people milling about, exchanging pleasantries and sipping champagne. Jane stood near the entrance, feeling like she didn't belong. She had never been to an event like this before, and the whole atmosphere felt foreign to her. She adjusted the strap of her dress nervously, glancing around to see if Liam had arrived yet. It was then that she saw him. He walked into the room with ease, exuding an air of confidence and poise that seemed to command attention. As his eyes scanned the room, they landed on her, and he smiled a warm, genuine smile that made her heart flutter. He walked over to her, his presence like a magnet pulling her in. "You look incredible," he said, his voice low and sincere. Jane felt her cheeks flush, the compliment making her feel both self-conscious and appreciated at the same time. "Thank you," she managed to reply, feeling the butterflies in her stomach grow. She hadn't expected to feel this nervous around him, not after everything they'd shared already. But seeing him in this world, in his element, made everything feel new again. Liam offered his arm, and without thinking, Jane took it. "Shall we?" he asked, his smile never wavering. They walked through the crowd together, Liam introducing her to a few of his colleagues and friends along the way. Jane tried her best to keep up with the conversations, but she couldn't shake the feeling that everyone was sizing her up, wondering who she was and why she was with Liam. She knew she didn't belong in this world, but for some reason, she didn't feel out of place with him by her side. As the evening wore on, Jane found herself growing more comfortable in Liam's company. They shared laughs, exchanged stories, and for the first time, she started to feel like maybe she wasn't just the wrong person in the wrong place. Maybe, just maybe, she was exactly where she needed to be. But then, something happened. A man approached them, his eyes cold and calculating. "Liam," he said, his voice tight. "I didn't expect to see you here." Liam's posture stiffened slightly, his smile faltering for just a moment. "Thomas?" he said with a hint of irritation in his voice. Jane could tell there was tension between them, but she had no idea what it was about. The man Thomas gave her a brief, appraising look before turning his attention back to Liam. "I'm sure you know how things are," Thomas continued, his tone dripping with condescension. "The higher you climb, the harder it gets to stay on top." Jane shifted uncomfortably, unsure of what was going on, but Liam remained calm. "I'm well aware," he replied, his voice cool and controlled. "But some things are more important than the game." Thomas raised an eyebrow at Liam's words, his lips curling into a smirk. "I suppose so," he said, before walking away without another word. Jane was left standing there, her mind racing. She could feel the change in Liam's energy, the way his demeanor had shifted in an instant. It was clear that there was more going on behind the scenes than she had realized. She turned to Liam, her curiosity getting the better of her. "What was that about?" she asked, her voice quiet. Liam took a deep breath, his expression unreadable. "Just business," he said, his gaze distant. Jane didn't press him further, but she couldn't shake the feeling that there was a side to Liam she hadn't seen before. A side that had nothing to do with the charming, open man she had gotten to know. As the night went on, she couldn't help but wonder what kind of world Liam was really a part of and whether or not she was ready to be a part of it. The gala ended with the usual farewells and promises to keep in touch. But Jane couldn't stop thinking about the conversation with Thomas. The way Liam had reacted, it wasn't just business. There was something personal there, something deeper. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but she knew that whatever it was going to change everything. As she got into the car with Liam to head home, she sat quietly beside him, her mind still spinning. Liam glanced over at her, his eyes soft. "You okay?" he asked. Jane nodded, though she wasn't sure she was. "Yeah, just a lot to process." Liam gave her a small smile, his hand brushing hers briefly. "I know the feeling," he said. Jane looked at him, wondering what else he was hiding. But for now, she kept her questions to herself. Tonight, the mystery of Liam's life felt like something she wasn't quite ready to solve, but she knew, deep down, that the answer would come. And when it did, it would change everything. The next few days felt like a whirlwind for Jane. After the gala, she couldn't shake the lingering feeling that there was so much more to Liam than he had let on. She had always been good at reading people, and everything about his behavior around Thomas had seemed off. There was a certain tension in his voice, a guarded look in his eyes when he spoke to that man. She wanted to understand what it all meant, but she knew pushing him would only make things worse. So, she decided to focus on her own life for a while. She threw herself back into her work, teaching her students, preparing lesson plans, and trying to ignore the thoughts of Liam that crept into her mind at every turn. But no matter how hard she tried to distract herself, something always brought her back to him. His smile, the way he had patiently listened to her talk about her dreams, the way he had opened up to her despite the world he lived in. It was clear that he wasn't like the other men she had known, men who only saw her as a waitress or a teacher. With Liam, she felt seen. He saw her as more than just her job or her past struggles. And that scared her. It scared her because she knew she wasn't ready for whatever he was offering, whatever this connection was between them. It had only been a few weeks since they had first met, but she couldn't deny that she was already attached. It was a feeling that crept up on her slowly, but now it was undeniable. Her phone buzzed on her desk, interrupting her thoughts. She picked it up and her heart skipped a beat when she saw it was a message from Liam. "Hey, I was thinking about you. Would you like to join me for dinner tonight? I know it's short notice, but I promise it'll be fun." Jane stared at the message for a moment, her pulse quickening. A part of her wanted to ignore it, to keep her distance and protect herself from whatever this was. But another part of her, the part that had spent the past few days wondering if he was thinking about her too, felt a pull she couldn't resist. She quickly typed back, "Sure, I'd love to. Where should we meet?" A few minutes later, Liam replied with the details of a small, intimate restaurant he had reserved for the two of them. It wasn't fancy like the gala, but that was part of what made it appealing to her. It felt like a more personal invitation, a step toward something real. When she arrived at the restaurant, Liam was already waiting for her. He was dressed casually, a stark contrast to the sharp suits he usually wore, and the sight of him in this new setting made her feel more comfortable. It was just the two of them, no pressure, no expectations, just dinner. They greeted each other with warm smiles, and Liam stood up to pull out her chair. It was a small gesture, but it felt meaningful, especially after everything they had been through. As they sat down, the conversation flowed easily. They talked about everything and nothing at all, family, dreams, fears. The more they talked, the more Jane realized how much she had in common with him. He wasn't the cold, detached billionaire she had first assumed him to be. He had a warmth about him that made her feel at ease, even when she was sitting across from him, still unsure of where they were headed. At one point, as the conversation slowed, Liam leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "I've been thinking about what you said the other night, about not knowing what really matters," he said, his voice low. Jane looked up at him, surprised. "What do you mean?" "You were right," Liam continued. "I've spent so much time chasing things that didn't really matter. Success, wealth, but it's not enough. And I think you've shown me that. I don't want to keep living like this, disconnected from the things that truly make life worth living." Jane felt a lump form in her throat. She hadn't expected him to be so open, so vulnerable. It made her heart ache. She had always admired people who were able to open up, but she never expected to find that kind of depth in someone like Liam. "I don't know what's going to happen next," he said, his gaze steady. "But I want to find out with you. I think you're someone I need to keep in my life." Jane's breath caught in her throat, her mind racing. She hadn't expected this, hadn't prepared herself for him to say something so raw, so honest. Part of her wanted to say something, to confess that she felt the same way, but another part of her held back. She didn't want to rush into anything, especially with all the uncertainty that surrounded him. "I think we need to take it slow," she said finally, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't want to jump into something without really understanding it," Liam nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I get that," he said softly, "and I'm willing to take it slow if that's what it takes." They shared a quiet moment, the weight of their conversation hanging in the air between them. Jane knew that things had just shifted, that this dinner had changed the course of their relationship, but she wasn't sure where it would lead. For the first time in a long time, she felt hope stir inside her. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time she wasn't afraid of finding out. The weeks following their dinner felt like a slow dance between hope and hesitation for Jane. She couldn't help but notice how different things were when she was with Liam. There was a connection between them, undeniable and real, but it was also complicated. She had been so used to keeping her distance from people, especially men, that letting herself feel this close to someone seemed almost unnatural. Yet every time Liam reached out, every time he shared a piece of his world with her, she found herself slowly letting her guard down. He was patient, understanding, and even when things felt uncertain, he never pressured her. It felt like the more time she spent with him, the more she realized how much she had been missing in her life. One evening, a few weeks after their dinner, Jane found herself standing outside Liam's apartment building, her heart racing in her chest. He had invited her to dinner again, but this time it was different. This time, it was in his world, his territory. She had been hesitant at first, unsure if she was ready to take that step. But when she had arrived, and he had greeted her with that same warmth in his smile, her doubts had faded. As the elevator doors closed and began their slow ascent, Jane's mind raced. She had been to fancy events with Liam, but this felt different. His apartment was more than just a place to live. It was a reflection of who he was, who he had become. It was polished, sophisticated, and yet there was a certain comfort in the way the space had been made his own. When the doors finally opened, Liam was waiting for her just outside, a welcoming smile on his face. "Hey, you made it," he said, his voice warm as he gently took her coat and hung it on a nearby hook. Jane smiled, feeling a sense of familiarity settle over her. "I almost chickened out," she admitted, her voice light. Liam chuckled, taking her hand as they walked further into the apartment. "I'm glad you didn't." They made their way to the dining room, where a candlelit dinner had been prepared, simple, yet intimate. The atmosphere was perfect, not too grand, but not casual either. It felt like the kind of evening where two people could really talk, without distractions or expectations. As they sat down, Jane felt a sense of calm wash over her. There was something about Liam's presence that put her at ease, something that made her feel like maybe, just maybe, this was where she was supposed to be. "So," Liam said after a few moments of comfortable silence, "how's work been?" "I know it's been a few days since we last talked." Jane smiled as she picked up her glass of wine, taking a slow sip before responding. "It's been busy," she said, her tone thoughtful. "But it's good. I love what I do, even if it feels like I'm constantly juggling a million things. I just wish I had more time to focus on my art." Liam leaned forward slightly, his eyes focused on her with genuine interest. "Your art, huh? I remember you telling me about it before. You're really passionate about it, aren't you?" Jane's heart skipped a beat. No one had ever taken such a real interest in her art before, not like this. "Yeah," she said, feeling her cheeks warm. "It's always been a part of me, even when life got busy. I dream of opening my own gallery someday, but I don't even know where to begin." Liam smiled, a knowing glint in his eyes. "I think you'd do great at it. You just need to trust yourself, Jane. I've seen how you light up when you talk about it." Jane looked down at her plate, her fingers tracing the edge of her glass. The compliment meant more to her than she realized, more than she had let on. "I don't know," she said softly. "It's hard. I've always felt like I wasn't meant for anything bigger than this teaching and getting by. It's a good life, but sometimes I wonder if I could do more." Liam reached across the table, his hand brushing hers gently. "You can do anything you set your mind to," he said, his voice soft but firm. "I know it's scary, but you've got the talent, the drive. I see it in you every time you talk about your dreams." Jane looked up at him then, her heart racing. For the first time in a long time, she felt like someone believed in her, truly believed in her. It was a feeling she wasn't used to, but it felt right. She smiled, a genuine smile, her eyes meeting his. "Thank you, Liam," she whispered. I didn't know I needed to hear that, but I did." They sat there for a moment, just looking at each other, and Jane felt something shift inside her. It wasn't just about the dinner, or the fancy apartment, or even the wealth Liam had. It was about something deeper, a connection, an understanding, a quiet trust that was growing between them. As the evening wore on, they talked about everything and nothing, laughing at small jokes, sharing stories from their lives, and enjoying the simplicity of being together. When the night came to an end, Liam walked her to the door, his hand still gently resting on her back. "I'm really glad you came tonight," he said, his voice low and sincere. Jane nodded, her heart full. "Me too," she replied softly. "I'm glad I came too." As she stepped into the elevator and watched the doors close, she realized something. She didn't know what the future held for her and Liam, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid to find out. Whatever happened, she was ready to take that next step into the unknown, with him by her side. The days after the dinner felt like a slow burn for Jane, her mind constantly circling back to the connection she and Liam shared. Each day seemed to bring something new, moments where their bond deepened and times when the weight of their very different worlds seemed to pull them apart. She found herself waking up with thoughts of him, and the idea of his presence in her life no longer felt as foreign as it once had. But there was still that lingering doubt, the fear that somehow she wasn't enough for someone like him. She had always kept her heart guarded, focused on the safe path, the familiar path of teaching and living day by day. But with Liam, things were different. The door to her heart, which she had carefully locked away, seemed to be slowly opening. She could feel herself falling for him, and that scared her. One evening, as the weather grew cooler, Liam called her and invited her out for a walk. They met at a nearby park, a quiet spot where the hustle and bustle of the city seemed far away. Liam was waiting for her near the entrance, his hands shoved into the pockets of his jacket. He looked different tonight, less polished, more like the man she had met in the beginning, and for some reason that made her feel more at ease. "Hey, you made it?" He greeted her with a warm smile as she approached. Jane smiled back, a small sense of relief washing over her. "I almost didn't," she joked, glancing at the darkening sky. "I wasn't sure if I should be here." Liam raised an eyebrow, his smile deepening. "Why? Because of me?" Jane shrugged, trying to make light of it. "Maybe," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's just, sometimes I feel like I don't belong in your world." Liam stopped walking and turned to face her, his expression serious. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice gentle but with a hint of concern. Jane hesitated for a moment, unsure if she should voice her insecurities. "I don't know," she began slowly. "It's like you have everything figured out, your career, your life, all these big plans. And I'm just here, trying to make ends meet." She paused, searching his face for a sign of judgment, but all she saw was understanding. "I don't want to hold you back, Liam. I'm not the woman you deserve." Liam reached out and placed his hand on her arm, gently turning her to face him. "Don't say that," he said, his voice firm but kind. "You are exactly the woman I want, Jane. Not because of what you do or don't do, but because of who you are." Jane felt her heart skip a beat. She had never heard anyone say something like that to her before, and it left her speechless. "I'm not looking for someone who has everything figured out," he continued, his thumb brushing her arm in a soft, reassuring gesture. "I'm looking for someone who's real, someone who's passionate about what they do, even if it's not what everyone else expects." Jane swallowed, trying to process his words. The weight of her own self-doubt was suddenly lifted by the simple sincerity of his statement. "But what if I can't keep up with you?" she whispered, feeling the vulnerability she had kept hidden for so long start to show. Liam's gaze softened, and he took a step closer to her. "You don't need to keep up with me, Jane. We're on our own journeys. All I want is for you to be by my side, to take this step with me, wherever it leads." Jane felt a warmth spread through her chest, a feeling she hadn't known in years. She realized then that the fear of not being enough, of not fitting into his world, was her own barrier, not his. And for the first time, she wasn't afraid to face it. "I don't know what the future holds," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "but I know I want to find out with you." Liam's smile was slow and knowing. "That's all I ask," he said softly. He took her hand in his, and they continued their walk through the park, the cool air brushing against their faces. Jane felt a sense of peace settle over her as they walked side by side, their fingers intertwined. There was still so much uncertainty ahead, but in that moment, Jane knew she was ready to face whatever came next. The future, with all its challenges and surprises, no longer seemed like something to fear. With Liam, it felt like something to embrace. As the night grew darker, they stopped by a bench near the lake, the soft glow of the streetlights reflecting off the water. They sat in silence for a while, simply enjoying each other's company. It was peaceful, and for the first time in a long time, Jane felt completely at ease. She didn't know where this relationship with Liam would lead, but she wasn't afraid anymore. She was ready to let go of her fears, to trust in the future, and to trust in them, together. As the weeks passed, Jane found herself falling deeper into a rhythm with Liam. Their connection, once tentative and fragile, had grown stronger with each passing day. They spent more time together, quiet evenings at his apartment, weekend outings, and long conversations that lasted until the early hours of the morning. It was as though the distance between their worlds was shrinking, replaced by something more genuine, more real. But even as their bond grew, there was still a lingering sense of hesitation inside Jane. Despite all the warmth and kindness Liam had shown her, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was still holding her back. She had always been independent, fiercely so, and the idea of depending on anyone, even someone like Liam, felt strange and uncomfortable. He had made it clear that he cared for her. But Jane wondered if she was ready to truly let someone in. It wasn't just about being in a relationship with him, it was about accepting that maybe, just maybe, she deserved happiness too. One evening, Liam invited her to a charity event he was hosting. It was important to him, and he wanted her to be there. Jane had agreed, though the thought of attending another fancy event made her uneasy. She was used to low-key gatherings, not grand galas where the wealthy mingled and exchanged pleasantries. But Liam had a way of making her feel included, like she was part of his world even when she wasn't quite sure how she fit into it. The night of the event arrived, and Jane found herself standing in front of her mirror, adjusting her dress one last time. It was a beautiful dress, something Liam had insisted she wear, but she couldn't help but feel out of place. She wasn't used to this kind of attention. She took a deep breath and reminded herself that this was Liam's world, and she was part of it now. When she arrived at the event, Liam was already waiting for her at the entrance, his face lighting up when he saw her. "You look amazing," he said, his voice filled with admiration. Jane smiled, though a small part of her still felt uneasy. "Thank you," she replied, glancing around at the luxurious surroundings. The event was held at a grand hotel, with crystal chandeliers hanging overhead and a sea of well-dressed guests mingling around the room. Jane felt the familiar feeling of being out of her element. But as the night went on, something changed. Liam introduced her to a few people, some of his colleagues, a few business partners, and she found that, with him by her side, she felt more at ease. He had a way of making her feel like she belonged, even in a world that had once seemed so foreign to her. As the evening wore on, they found themselves standing together by the balcony, looking out over the city. The lights below sparkled, and the air was crisp with the scent of the night. Liam turned to her, his expression softening. "I know this isn't your usual scene," he said, his voice gentle, "but I just wanted you to know that I'm really glad you're here." Jane met his gaze, her heart swelling with warmth. "I'm glad I'm here too," she said quietly. Liam reached for her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "You don't have to worry about fitting in, Jane," he said, his eyes searching hers. "You already do. You're the only person I need here." His words sent a ripple of emotion through her, and for a moment, she didn't know what to say. She had never been good at accepting compliments or the kind of affection he was offering. But in that moment, she realized that she didn't have to have everything figured out. She didn't have to be perfect, and neither did Liam. They were just two people, trying to figure things out together. "I'm not sure I believe that," she said softly, her voice tinged with vulnerability. "I've always felt like I was missing something, like I didn't belong." Liam's hand tightened around hers. "You belong with me," he said simply, his voice unwavering. Jane felt a lump form in her throat, and for the first time in a long time she let herself believe it. Maybe she did belong with him. Maybe she didn't need to be perfect to be loved. And maybe, just maybe, she was ready to let herself love him back. As the night drew to a close, Liam walked her back to the car, his hand still holding hers. There was a lightness in her step that hadn't been there before. She had always been afraid of what letting someone in might mean, afraid of the vulnerability it required. But with Liam, it felt different. It didn't feel like losing herself. It felt like gaining something worth holding on to. When they reached the car, Liam paused and turned to her, his expression serious. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice low. Jane looked at him, her heart beating faster. "What is it?" she asked, suddenly nervous. Liam took a deep breath, his eyes locking with hers. "I don't know what the future holds for us," he said, but I do know that I want you in my life, for as long as you'll have me." Jane's breath caught in her throat. She had never heard him speak so openly, so honestly, and in that moment, she realized that she felt the same way. She wasn't ready to walk away from this feeling, this connection, this chance at something real. "I'm not going anywhere," she whispered, a soft smile tugging at her lips. Liam's face broke into a grin, and he pulled her into a warm, gentle embrace. "Good," he whispered into her ear, holding her close, "because I'm not letting you go." And in that moment, standing there in his arms, Jane knew that whatever came next, she would face it with him by her side. As the weeks went by, Jane and Liam's connection only deepened. What had started as a chance meeting, a simple mistake, had now turned into something undeniable. They spent more time together, exploring the quiet moments and the grand gestures. Jane had slowly let go of her fears, her doubts, and opened herself up to the possibility of love, something she had never truly allowed herself to experience before. And with Liam, it felt different, it felt real. Their lives were still separate in many ways, but they were beginning to merge, creating a space where they could both be vulnerable and strong at the same time. One morning, Jane woke up to a message from Liam. It was simple, but it sent her heart racing. "I've been thinking about us," it read. "I don't want to wait any longer. Will you marry me?" Jane's eyes went wide as she stared at the screen, her heart thumping in her chest. She had dreamed of a moment like this, but now that it was happening, she didn't know what to think. Their relationship had been fast, yes, but it had also been steady and filled with moments of understanding that she had never thought possible. As she stood there, frozen for a moment, her phone buzzed again. It was Liam, this time with a picture of them, taken during their first date, smiling and laughing together. The caption was simple. "You are my everything. I can't imagine my life without you in it. Will you be mine forever?" Tears welled up in Jane's eyes as she looked at the photo. She had found something she never thought she would, someone who truly cared about her, flaws and all. In that moment, she knew she was ready. With a smile, she typed back, "Yes. Yes, I will marry you." A few moments later, her phone rang, and Liam's name flashed on the screen. "Did you mean it?" he asked, his voice full of hope. Jane laughed softly, feeling the weight of her answer settle in. "I did. I can't imagine my life without you either." The sound of Liam's laughter filled the air, and for the first time in a long time, Jane felt like everything was falling into place. They had both been through so much, but together, they had built something real, something worth holding on to. The rest of the day felt like a blur as they celebrated together, making plans for their future, imagining what their lives would look like from this point forward. It was no longer just about the uncertainty or the fears. It was about two people who had found each other, who had been brave enough to step into the unknown together, and who were now ready to face whatever came next. As the evening came to a close, they stood together in Liam's apartment, their arms wrapped around each other. "I love you, Jane," Liam said softly, his voice filled with emotion. Jane smiled up at him, her heart full. "I love you too," she whispered. In that moment, everything felt right. They had found their way to each other, despite all the odds. And now, they were ready to begin the next chapter of their lives together. With a quiet promise in her heart, Jane knew that this was just the beginning. The love they shared was only going to grow stronger, and no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them side by side. If this story touched you even just a little, hit like so the algorithm knows we still believe in kindness. Tap subscribe and the notification bell so you won't miss the next journey. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What moment of giving once changed you? Share it in the comments below. Your story might become the inspiration for the next video. And if you think someone needs to hear this story, please share it with them. Thank you for spending your time here. See you again in the next story.